Good evening, everyone. I'm Gigi Howard. I'm a librarian and host of the podcast Drinks in the Library, where every week I interview a guest about their favorite book and we pair it with a drink. Thank you for joining us tonight. We are wrapping up day 3 of Every Library Banned Books Week Live Festival, and I'm hoping you've been enjoying it as much as I have. This event is a wonderful opportunity to engage in the important conversations around reading, libraries, censorship, and the sheer joy of storytelling. There's a few very important conversations that we're going to be having around this festival. First, we're here to celebrate. We're here to celebrate all things reading, the true beauty of books, writing, and storytelling that bring to our communities. And I'm so looking forward to discussing these topics with our wonderful panelists joining me from Kensington Books, and I'll be introducing them momentarily. But the second thing that we need to talk about this week is the fight against censorship, the fight against book bans. And for that, we need your help. If you're concerned about the unconstitutional censorship or attacks on marginalized populations, there are tangible ways to get involved. Visit fightforthefirst.org, and we're here to connect you and help you take action to defend access to books and stories that matter. All right, I'm so excited to be here tonight with my friends from Every Library, the only political action committee for libraries in the United States. So let's go ahead and introduce our guests. First, I have Valerie Byrne. Valerie is an Agatha Anthony Edgar and Next Generation Award finalist. She is the author of 5 cozy mystery series and is an adjunct professor in the Writing Popular Fiction MFA program at Seton Hill University. Valerie lives in northern Georgia, and she can be found online at vmburns.com. Welcome, Valerie. Hi.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here. And my next guest is Ally Malinenko. And Ally is a poet, a librarian, and author whose novels include the Junior Library Guild selection and Bram Stoker finalist, This Appearing House, Ghost Girl, and upcoming the collaborative historical fiction novel, The Other March Sisters. She lives in Brooklyn, New York, where she writes in the early hours of the morning, and she can be found online at allymalinenko.com and at Ally Malinenko on Instagram. So thank you both. Thank you to Kensington Books and Every Library for bringing us all together tonight. So I wanted to ask, when was the moment you wanted to be a writer? And Ally, why don't I give that to you first to tell us your experience?
Sure. So I've always been a reader. I was a reader as a very young child. Like going to the library was a thing that my mother took me to all of the time. But I never thought about a writer. I cared about the books. I never really considered the person behind them. And then I read, I think when I was in 4th grade, I read A Wrinkle in Time, and it blew my mind. And I remember turning over the cover to read the bio on the back, and it dawned on me that people do this. And it was honestly at that moment that I was like, what if I could do this? Mm. I started writing like short stories. The first short story that I ever wrote was about it's terrible. It's very sad. It's about a dog that gets run over because I was a dark child. But yeah, I mean, that was really the moment where I was like, oh, people create books. Books don't just exist, right. So it was pretty profound, and I've worked pretty hard for a long time. It took a long time to get here.
Yeah. And so, from writing about the dying dog, now the March Sisters, here we are. What a journey.
Exactly.
Yeah. And Valerie, I see you laughing along and nodding along. What was your experience like?
You know, it was similar to Ally's in that I did not grow up thinking, oh, when I grow up, I want to be an author. When I grew up, I wanted to make money. So I was like, I think I want to be an engineer or something. I also grew up about 3 blocks from a branch library, and I spent so much time at that library. I'd be there 2-3 times a week, and I loved to read. And then I fell in love with Agatha Christie, and I read every Agatha Christie I could find and all books that were similar. And over the decades of reading mysteries, I had a list of, man, I wish somebody would write a book about. I wish somebody would write a book about this. I wish somebody would write this book. And, you know, the decades go by and nobody's written that book. And finally, I'm like, well, maybe I should try. Maybe I could try and write that book. Yeah. And so I did. And I think that was really, I don't think I wrote stories when I was little. I wrote really bad poetry. But I never thought of making a living doing this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and so you started with Agatha Christie. And so talking about your writing process, because you write a lot of cozy mysteries, right? Mm-hmm. So what is that process like for you?
So I am what we call a pantser.
Okay.
So I'm that writer who gets an idea, gets all excited, and just writes by the seat of their pants. I'm not the person who's the plotter, who's going to have every detail of the story all plotted out. And I have tried to become a plotter because I would like to become a plotter when I grow up. That's what I'm going to do. But it really sucks the joy of writing out for me. I love just getting an idea, deciding, you know, I spend a lot of time developing the characters, getting to know who they are, and then I put them in these crazy situations and figure out how to get out of it. And yes, I do write myself into corners, and I have to figure out how do I get out of this. But that's the fun and the joy for me. I tried plotting one book, and it's the only book I've started and never finished. And I think it's because I'm bored, because I know what's going to happen. Mm-hmm. So I'd love to just go with it, let the story flow, let the characters do what they want. And I get excited about it. And I have, I think, hopefully as much joy as a reader would get, because I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah. I love this experience of like interviewing so many authors recently over the last few months, and like hearing these different experiences of how everybody writes a little bit differently. And so Ally, coming to you, like, what's your process like, and has it changed?
So before I answer that, I just have to say, Valerie, I am unbelievably impressed with mystery writers, because I have no idea how you guys do this. Like, I have friends who are mystery writers. I'm like, but how? How do you do it? And one of my friends told me that they wind up writing the book backwards. Like, they know the ending and then they go from there. And I'm still like, but how? Like, how? Anyway, so much like Valerie, I am a pantser. I'm kind of in the middle. So I can't start a book if I don't have 3 specific components. I need to know how it opens. I need to know a key middle scene, and I need to know how it ends. I can't work if I don't know what the ending looks like. But everything in between, I like to leave open to, I don't know, whatever I think of that morning, like wherever the story takes me. Like, it becomes one of those things sometimes where, like, I understand that I fundamentally have created these characters and I'm writing them. But there are moments where it just feels like they're just telling me a story, and I'm writing down what they're telling me. And I'm like, oh, okay, this is what we're doing. Okay.
But really, are you the one that's in control, right? It's like usually your characters are the ones that are leading you.
Like, they're absolutely, once they become fully formed people in my head, I'm like, oh, okay, I'll just follow you and jot down whatever you're doing.
That is always really cool to hear about too. And Ally, did want to ask you, because we talked a little bit about this before, of your recent experience process with working with other writers on your upcoming book, right?
Yes. So I wrote I am one of the co-authors with Linda Epstein and Liz Parker of The Other March Sisters, which is an adult historical, which is very different from what my other books are, which are all middle grade horror. And it was an amazing experience. I've never so I'm saying that we co-authored, but I do feel like I need to emphasize that like the section that I wrote, I'm the only one who wrote it, and the section that Liz wrote, she's the only one who wrote it, and same with Linda. So it's not like we were in each other's spaces. So I kind of think of it more as like a almost like they're like little short stories. But it was an amazing experience, and we did like, you know, edit each other. So, you know, there was that, but it was, it's not something I've ever done before. And there was a big learning curve because, you know, writing is usually such an individual experience. But I love those two, and I love the story we put together.
Well, that's exciting. We're all looking forward to it. Valerie, do you work by yourself? Do you ever work with a team? Or, you know, I also think about working with your editors and all of those other people that play a role in these books, right?
Yeah, I have not worked with other authors on a project. I work with my agent or my editor on, you know, I guess the story. But then once my editor has kind of greenlighted it and said, yes, go forth and write that, then I'm pretty much on my own unless I, you know, send up a, you know, red flag, like help me. But
a flare.
For the most part, it's just me.
Oh, awesome. And also, Valerie, you mentioned earlier about growing up down the street from a library. We are here as part of Banned Books Week and talking about libraries. And did libraries have a role in your life growing up? Obviously, they did.
Absolutely. I love libraries. Again, I was like 3 blocks from a library, and I was the kid that I just loved to read, and my mother would make me go outside and play. You know, it's like this is bad for your eyes to spend all this time, you know, inside reading. You need to go outside and do something. And I'm like, okay. So I go outside, I walk 3 blocks, and I can go to the library and read. And so it was instrumental, I think, in really helping develop my love of reading and definitely in helping me find, you know, Agatha Christie, finding, you know, the genre that I love. I read a lot of genres, but, you know, when I read my first, I read Nancy Drew, I read Hardy Boys, I read a lot of mystery, young adult and books, but it was, you know, I found that first one, and I still remember I read The Murder of Roger Ackroyd, and it just blew my mind. And I go back like the next day, like I need another one of these. And I read, and then there were none. And I remember thinking, well, this is going to be easy. You know, 10 people on an island, whoever's the last one is the one who done it. And I should have known better. I mean, she tells us in the title, and then there were none. She kills them all. Like, how do you do this? How do you have a mystery and you kill everybody? And I was just so intrigued that I went and I had to get every Agatha Christie I could find, and then every other book that was similar. And librarians are the ones who do that, you know, who are, you know, they see this kid who's hungry and they're like, well, you might like this, or, you know, have you tried this one, or you know, and really help you to discover books that you may not have found on your own.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And also, Ally is probably thinking the same thing. Ally, you're also a librarian.
I am.
So how did you get into it? What roles have libraries played in your life?
So growing up, we didn't have like I got a book at Christmas or my birthday. But I was a voracious reader. So pretty much every weekend my mom took me to the library and I would check out a stack of books like this high. And I remember the librarian there being like, "Are you going to read all of these?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm going to read all of them." And she was like, "Are you going to tell me about them when you get back?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'll tell you about them." And I would literally be like, "So this was about this and this was about this." And then I grew up, as I grew up, I always spent time in the library. I always, because I've always just been a voracious reader. And then I graduated college and I wound up working a very corporate job and I was very, very unhappy. And I was like, I can't do this. Like, I can't do this every day. I can't put a suit on every day and go to this place that's just about getting money. And I was like, what's the only job you've ever had that you cared about? And it was when I worked part-time in a library in college. And I was like, okay, that's what you're doing. And I went back to graduate school and I became a librarian and I work at the Brooklyn Public Library and it's great.
Well, thank you both for sharing your stories. And I want to take a moment to turn to our viewers. And we're talking about stories. We're talking about finding ourselves within them and making sure that people growing up now are having the same kinds of experiences, just like Valerie and Ally just described. So just a few calls to action. There is a bookbanpetition.us. I really encourage, all you have to do is go and sign it, and then it adds your name to the list of thousands of other Americans who are fighting for the right to read. Also, none of this is done without money. And so I would encourage everyone to donate. And you can donate so easy. everylibrary.org/2024. That money goes directly to campaigns. Every library has over 100 campaigns going right now to fight against censorship and book banning in the United States. So definitely just wanted to do a little, call to action there for everybody to come and support us and support libraries. Okay, so coming back to reading a little bit, thinking about our reading lives, Valerie, I got to ask you first, since you do so many of the cozy mysteries, is that your genre to read or do you branch out from it? What's your reading life like?
So I would say 75 to 80% of what I read are cozy mysteries. That's what I love. And that's why I write it, is because that's what I love. But I do read other genres. I read science fiction, fantasy. Right now I have, I'm intrigued by paranormal romance with werewolves. And I'm just like, how is this possible? How is this a thing? And I'm like, is there a book somewhere that explains this? So I'm kind of analytical a little bit, and I'm trying to set that aside. But I've just been like, this is interesting. So I've been reading more of that. I used to read a lot more mystery or romance when I was younger. I don't generally read scary because I'm a scary person. So I tend to avoid horror, although I have two friends who write horror, but I need to know that the dog doesn't die. Like Ellie killed the dog. You can't kill the dog in a cozy. The dog doesn't die, and I need to know that the bad guy gets it in the end. So you can kind of put me on a lot of, I can get through horror if I know in the end that the bad guy is gonna get it.
Yeah. Justice.
I need justice to prevail in the end. And so I read mostly cozies, and I'm a coward. So even mysteries that are too dark, I'll be up all night watching Christian TV and singing hymns. So I need the cozy mysteries are more like the Murder, She Wrote, where you're not going to see the blood, guts, and gore of the mystery. You just stumble across a dead body, and then you start putting the clues together to figure out who done it.
Yeah. Okay. I also am not, I can't handle anything scary. So I feel you for sure.
Thank you.
Ally, what about you?
Well, I have to say, Valerie, I definitely, if you really are serious about this werewolf thing, I definitely recommend Rachel Harrison's books. Because she does a whole, she's doing a whole werewolf thing, and they're great, and it's romance, and it's funny, and it's not scary, I promise. So don't worry. I think you'll enjoy it. Sure. So yeah. Wait, tell me the question again. I was too busy thinking about Rachel Harrison.
We're too many werewolves on the brain.
We're talking about what
do you read when you're
what do we read?
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. Sorry. So I read multiple books at a time.
Okay.
So I usually always have one adult book, fiction, which tends to be horror. Mm-hmm. And I always have one middle grade, which oscillates between like a horror or like a mystery, because I really like middle grade mysteries too. Mm-hmm. Or whatever my middle grade friends have written that has just come out, I will absolutely read.
Yeah.
And then I read a nonfiction.
Okay.
So what's my current nonfiction? Oh, I just finished one about a fire that happened at a circus in Hartford, Connecticut.
Okay.
And it was phenomenal. And now I just started one about the 1922 expedition to the Mount Everest, because I'm also a giant nerd about exploration.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah. I'm a big polar exploration nerd, even though all of those men were terrible. They were terrible people, but I'm just fascinated by what they went through.
Yeah. What was it? The Nightmare at the End of the Earth.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I got the title right, but
no, no, I don't remember either.
They get trapped in the ice.
Yes. I know what you're talking about. I can't remember.
Yeah. So, and also I wanted to ask you, we already did talk about the other March sisters, but I was kind of curious at your upcoming book. What kind of inspired this? What is it about? What makes it different than, the classic Little Women?
So, my upcoming book is called Broken Dolls.
Okay.
And it's a middle grade, it's a middle grade horror book.
Okay.
And it is very much about grief.
Mm.
And it's a story of two sisters whose grandfather passes away, and the older sister, Kay, is really having a lot of trouble processing her feelings about it, because they were very, very close. Mm. And her younger sister sees that, and they wind up picking up a doll at a fair. She wins it as a prize. And the doll, the little girl's name is Holly, and the doll's name is Holly Doll. And Holly Doll convinces Holly that if she becomes a doll, she will never die. And then Kay has to convince Holly that that's not a life, and that even though death is hard and it's sad and it's scary, it's what we all go through and what we'll have to deal with. And I'm very excited about it. I'm also very excited because Stephen King's very excited about it.
Oh,
which is very, very cool. Yeah. He's he tweeted about it, and he's getting a copy of the Ark when it comes out, probably relatively soon. So hopefully he'll have nice things to say, because I'm kind of terrified about it. Because I'm like, well, if he says nothing, I'll be crushed. But if he says bad things, I'll be crushed. But let's just hope it'll be fine.
We're gonna just put in the universe. He's gonna love it.
He's gonna love it, right? Why would he say mean things? He's a very nice man.
We'll tag him in the show notes here. No pressure or anything. Oh, well, very excited. And so what kind of inspired you? I'm just kind of thinking about it. I mean, who is this message for? Who are you thinking about when you wrote it?
So I knew that I wanted to, my other books also touch upon grief. So I knew I wanted to delve a little bit deeper. And when I started it, I was about 3 years past my father passing.
Mm.
So I think it was just a matter of like, okay, some time has gone by and I want to talk about these feelings. And I wanted to give kids, you know, because kids lose people, you know, and adults aren't always great about talking about death, because it's a hard topic, and I get it, but I feel like one of the great things about middle grade books is that they're the opportunity that people have to talk about the hard things.
Mhm.
And I think that horror especially does that really well because, you know, you give a kid a sword and he learns how to vanquish the monster. And I think that that matters. I think it's important that kids learn that they will get through things.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's why I wrote it.
Oh, I love it. It's beautiful.
Thank you.
Valerie, what's your next work coming out? What's that about?
So the next book that I have coming out is the 10th book in my Mystery Bookshop mystery series.
Wow.
And that is a series about a woman, Samantha Washington, who she and her husband dreamed of one day quitting their day job and pursuing their dream, which was to own a mystery bookshop. But her husband dies, and she realizes life is too short not to pursue your dreams. So she quits her job. She buys the building they always wanted, and she opens the mystery bookshop. And the other dream that Samantha had was writing British historic cozy mysteries. So every book in this series includes two mysteries. So the mystery that she's solving in her real life, you know, if she were real, and the mystery that she's writing about, which is a British historic cozy mystery that takes place in 1939, right before World War II. So that book, The Next Deadly Chapter, comes out, I believe, in February, March of next year.
Okay. Well, exciting. And so I'm guessing we've got promotional stuff going on and doing stuff online. Is that and like all in the works for, you know, this time when you're getting ready to launch a book? What's that experience like?
That is a lot. And because I write multiple series, I just had a book release in July. July. The third book in my Baker Street mystery, which is a culinary cozy. So right now I'm doing a lot of things for that. And I just got back from Virginia Sunday night from, you know, promoting that. And so probably in a couple months, I'll be doing more promotion for the Mystery Bookshop book. So it's a juggling act.
Yeah. Ally, would you agree with that?
Oh, 100%. Book promotion is so weird and hard. And like, I feel like I'm on social media screaming about things all the time. And then I'm like, nobody cares. It's a lot. And I think, you know, honestly, for people who are listening who also might happen to be writers, like everyone knows the old axiom that like the best thing to do when you finish a book is start the new one, and it's 100% true. Like book promotion for me is just a lot, and it's, you know, I love going to events. I love meeting fans. I especially love doing class visits because I love talking to kids about books. But at the end of the day, like, I love writing them more than anything else, and that's what I focus on.
Yeah. I always people ask me sometimes if I would want to write, but I'm kind of the opposite where I just like to talk. So I'm really good at this side of it, of talking to you.
Sure.
Yeah. So I can imagine the opposite's also challenging. So anyway, let's see. I just want to ask, you know, is there anything else coming up? We just got the new books coming out. Anything else that y'all wanted to share in the near future? I guess we might have already touched on it.
Yeah, I mean, I just, I have 2 books coming out next year, which feels like a lot, but I'm sure it'll be fine.
Of course.
And I'm excited about it, and I'm
Mhm.
excited about the books that I'm plotting
Yeah.
right now and what's next, and I just feel really, really thankful that I'm doing this.
Yeah. Wonderful. Valerie, how
Yeah.
about you?
Well, so right now I have 3 series that I work on. I try to write every day. So Ally's comment about when you finish one book, start the next. And, to me, when I decided I was going to be a writer, I decided to treat writing like my day job, because at that time I had a day job and I was writing at night. And so I I set a goal for how many words I want to write. And cozies are not these big door stoppers, so, in roughly, if I write every day, 3-4 months, I can finish a book. Well, these characters have been living in my head for, 4 months. And by the time I finish that book, I'm really sick of them and I don't want to talk to them anymore. I don't want to hear anything else they have to say. But writing for me is also like exercise. And if I stop, it's hard to get started again.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to do it every day, even if it's just a little bit. If I write, 250 words, which is a page, right? If I write 1 page, I need to do it every day. And so by the time I finish a book and spend a month or so editing, I am ready to move on to the next book. And I can start writing about those characters. And then I spend 4 months with them in my head and I'm sick of them and I'm ready to move on. And so that's how I've been able to stay sane and still productive. And usually by the time I finish my 3 series, I'm ready to hear back from that first one again. So I get excited about those characters and I want to spend time with them until they start to annoy me. So
Oh, well, thank you both. Thank you, Valerie and Ally, and Kensington Books, your publisher, for bringing us together. Thank you, every library, for also bringing us together, allowing me to be a guest host tonight. Once again, I'm Gigi Howard from the podcast Drinks in the Library. And like I said, this is night 3. We are going until Friday. And so there's going to be a lot more events this week to talk about with Every Library Banned Book Week Live. And you can tune in and see the event calendar at everylibrary.org/ELBB24. Valerie and Ally, this has been amazing. I wish you both a wonderful evening. And bye.
Thank you.
Well,
Bye.
bye.